All right. This is another episode of Tuesdays with Audi, and I'm your host, Audi. So today is officially the fourth episode of Tuesdays with Audi, and I can't believe this is the fourth one already. Wake me up when September ends, because this month has definitely feel a little bit. That's a lot, a little bit too long. And so last week, I think it definitely was a very hard topic for me, as I mentioned. There was a lot of positives in regards to what I said and the things that I did, and even someone told me in terms of the reviews about it. Sometimes I just need to watch my language, but that's the reason why, in terms of not being able to edit, those are the things that you tend not to be able to hide in regards to what it is that you say and what it is that you're feeling in that moment and how you act or react to those particular feelings that you are experiencing at that moment, which kind of added a whole nother dimension to the entire process. So today I have a topic in mind, and for some reason it's like my brain is all over the place because of some things that have happened over the past hour or so, maybe about the last 2 hours, that kind of have me on a little bit of an edge in regards to work. So I'm not here to talk about work, and I think in terms of whatever it is that we do, whether we want to or not, we are gonna have to kind of immerse ourselves in some aspect of work. And this is where we kind of make our living in regards to taking care of ourselves, our families, or providing our basic needs, and also shelter, those key things in terms of what it means in terms to be a human. So okay, let's get off of that. So work is important, and sometimes it takes up a whole lot of your time, and also mentally drains you as well. So today's topic, after some pondering in terms of whether I should still talk about it, is all about expectations. And what better topic to talk about after I had this experience with work? And it's still going through it. It hasn't been resolved, but we are going to talk about expectation. So we all have been held up to some level of expectation, whether it be amongst our friends, our families, our siblings, our significant other, our church, our community, our jobs, and even at the most highest point is the expectation that we set for ourselves. So I think in terms of some of my experiences in terms of what expectation is, we all have expectations for each other, and like I said, we have expectations for ourselves. But what happens when we do not communicate those expectations? My favorite saying that I've found so far is that expectation minus communication equals resentment. I'll just let that sit for a few seconds. Expectations without communication equals resentment. So if you have expectations in regards to what you want from someone and you do not communicate those things, then it's not on their end to feel that they need to live up that expectation. You are always going to have that level in regards to what it is you want this person, or what you want out of this particular engagement or this particular venture. But at the end of the day, you have to go ahead and communicate it in order for you to feel satisfied about your expectations of whatever it is that you want to engage yourself in, or whoever it is you want to get close to in terms of developing some form of bond or relationship. So jobs. I didn't even want to talk about this, but here we are. So I think in terms of what life is all about, there is this form of reality that we all perceive inside of our heads. And I think in terms of what it is that we want this reality to be, when that expectation of that reality does not meet the real world experience that we are going through, then we experience some form of discontentment, some form of a little bit form of depression, maybe a whole lot of anxiety, and definitely some feeling lost in terms of what it is that you're doing, and even feeling a little bit of not being fulfilled. And I think fulfillment is what we all try to achieve in terms of whatever we engage ourselves in. And so if we do not get what we actually went into that particular venture, out of it, then we tend to get to that point where we feel as though we are not doing anything that's fulfilling to us, or it's not worth our time. So, you know, expectations. I don't know what else to say. But what I'm gonna say is that I'm gonna share a story in regards to, one thing that definitely made me realize how important it is in order for you to kind of voice your expectations and make sure that the people around you know what they are, in order for them to kind of, not saying that they have to live with it, but at least they know what the level that you want from them, and they need to have it and set in place for you to feel as though you are achieving what it is that you want to achieve. So growing up, like I mentioned in the last episode, I had a single mother. I'm not gonna get into that story today in terms of everything that I went through, but I'm gonna just share one short little story that really stood out to me in terms of expectation. So growing up, like I said, I had lived in a single parent house. We didn't have access to a lot of things, as mentioned. So one of the things I always wanted as a kid was to have a birthday party. I was expecting it like every single birthday in order for me to get it, but it never came. So as I got older, in terms of not having those particular experiences, whether it be family experiences or going on trips, having the birthday party I always wanted but never had. So I wanted to kind of make sure that I have a little sister and a niece who's around the same age, and I always wanted to make sure that in terms of those things I didn't experience, because I don't have any kids of my own, I wanted to at least expose them to those particular experiences. In terms of, because they live in Florida, taking them to the theme parks, taking them to do some physical activities in regards to the Dave and Buster style kind of fun arcade games, taking them to basketball games, to football games, live games and stuff like that, paying decent bucks. I'm not really up there in terms of the salary, but when I actually had the means in order to make that thing come true, I wanted to actually give them that experience. So after doing all of these things, and then one day whilst I was at a particular event, someone just asked me, in terms of, it was like a little exercise that we was going through. They said, think about something that you did for someone, and then you went all out and beyond to get this thing done for this person. And now think about how it made you feel getting that thing ready, and then making sure that they had the best possible time. And then what was the worst part about it? So I thought about it, and I thought about the same scenario I just mentioned. But then he said, okay, well, did the person that you went all out for tell you thank you? And I was like, I don't ever think that my sister or my niece actually told me thank you for what I did for them. Because at some point I felt as though they always expected more, or they wanted more from everything else that I was exposing to them. But I feel as though they also did not understand what the means were in terms of getting those things done, which is some level of expectation that I had in terms of them appreciating that particular venture, but they also had some expectation of what it is they were supposed to get out of it as well. And for them to get that level of expectation, they needed the means, which is money, in order for them to get it. So, which brings me here. After thinking about it, I thought about it, considered it, and then I was like, oh my gosh, it never happened. So then the person's like, okay, now how did it make you feel about not getting that level of gratitude being expressed towards you in terms of what you went all out in terms of doing for your sister and your niece? And I was like, it just made me feel like, I wasn't doing enough. And, yeah. So he said, yes, it's that kind of way that we feel. And then he hit me with a whole nother. He pretty much just pulled the rug under me, and there I was, I fall in a hole. He's like, now, think about all those people in your life who have gone above and beyond for you and done things for you, and have not received that thank you, or you showing that appreciation, or even reaching out to them and letting them know how much it mattered to you in terms of what it is that they help you with. And I was like, oh my goodness. I think it's a whole line of people. And so that just goes to show you in terms of what it is that we do. We tend to kind of be so much obsessed about the things that we do for people and how they react to it, whether it be positive or negative, but not necessarily pay attention to what other people do for us and what it is that they wanted at the end of the day. What they wanted is some form of expectation. It's not your fault that they wanted it, but if you are grateful for whatever they did, then you have, or must, or at least in some major form deep in your core, be willing to kind of just look back or kind of look at this person and just say, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I love the fact that you went above and beyond to put this together to help me to have a good time, or to help to expose me to something that I did not know was even out there. And that little thank you and being sincere, even though we tend to kind of say, sincerity, we kind of don't know the difference between someone being sincere and someone being fake. We've had so many fake people in our lives that trying to be sincere that we cannot justify or cannot distinguish when someone is being real and when someone is being fake. And I think that is one of the worst things in terms of expectation, that you expect someone to generally care about you. You expect people to be genuine with you and open and honest, but you can't even do it yourself. And so we expect a lot out of people, but then we limit what it is that we expect out of ourselves. And so, no, I like I said, okay, I need to say this. This brings us to the end of another episode, but it just goes to show you that even with my scattered brain today, in terms of what has transpired, I like to laugh about this and say, I don't even know if I have a job anymore, but I never really do know, because it always seems as though I have so much expectation in regards to what it is I want from my employers, in terms of them being a little bit more upfront in terms of what is going on, instead of hiding and kind of creating narratives in terms of making things seem as though it is acceptable. And for me, in terms of how I think and being logical about certain things, and then seeing limitations and even some things I did not look at, by just voicing those things and talking about them out in the person, sometimes I see where my flaws are in terms of my thinking. But I also see that a lot of people tend to want to hide their flaws, and not necessarily when you acknowledge those flaws that they present, they tend to want to say, okay, well, don't worry about it, it's gonna be okay. But it's like, how do you know something is gonna be okay if you have never experienced it, or even have the expertise, even form of expertise within that particular field, to kind of tell me that it's gonna be okay? That in itself is not okay. So, no, it's a lot of stuff. As my friend used to say, it's a lot of stuff. Just stuff to replace, the word that we all like to say, sugar, honey, iced tea. But, it's a lot of stuff. But thank you everybody for, the comments, the likes, the subscriptions, the shares, and everybody who reached out to me and kind of, told me that it definitely touched the sensitive spot for them in terms of watching the video. I think that because it was a little bit in terms of the other side of me, in terms of what people are accustomed to seeing, I felt as though it kind of touched people in a way that they've never seen me before. I think in terms of me putting myself out there to be kind of scrutinized and to be commented on, it definitely took a lot out of me, and I was even scared to even do it. Honestly, I was scared. I think the scariest things is when the scariest things always seem to keep us away from doing what we want to do. But once we face those things in terms of how afraid we are with it, then we realize that it isn't as fearful as we perceived it to be in the first place. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned so far this month alone. So that's the 4th episode, guys. I'm excited. We're going to see what happens next week. This one's a little bit longer than usual, but I'm just excited we made it to 4 episodes. That's almost like a month in real time. Like this is fake time. But nonetheless, thank you everybody for tuning in. And I'll see you guys next week on another episode of Tuesdays with Audi. And I'm your host, Audi. Peace. Deuces. I'm Audi.